Welcome back, everybody. Rules of the Arena number 51. We are back in not in Studio B of Blind Ninja Studios because of, well, I had some stuff come up and couldn't make it there. But happy to say that tonight Grandpa Ben is finally back missing. He was found making a
Hello.
fort out of some pine cones with some squirrels and raccoons. We're kind of worried about him, but we'll get him back to the group home promptly after tonight. And joining us from the warm and sunny Dallas, Texas area is BJ Harrison, owner and founder of Byrom's Custom Woodworks. Thank you, BJ, for taking time to come on the show tonight. Just want to introduce yourself to the folks listening.
Hey, Gordon, thank you for having me. My name is BJ, owner of Byron's Custom Woodworks. So a little background on myself. I'm a father of two, husband, lived in Texas all but 5 years of my life, and grew up building and making with my dad and grandpa, and decided one day that, hey, I can at least make some money out of doing this and have some fun on the side. And at the end of the day, meet a lot of really cool people, and in the woodworking community, which is probably one of my favorite communities out in the world. And I get to build and have fun, teach my kids stuff and drive my wife crazy with my overly expensive and dusty habit. So
The hope is that always pays for itself, right? Or at least that's the lie we tell them.
that and that's the one thing, because if a new tool shows up, it's like, hey baby, it's okay. The company paid for it.
What are you talking about? I've had that for 6 months.
Yeah, that brand new saw stop that has what? No. She did
I've always
that.
had.
Yeah, she approved that purchase, so I'm okay there.
So
It was her idea.
Did you ever do any formal training besides just working with your dad and grandpa? Or like take a
Um,
class, or I know Ben's gone to a few different schools and used this up here a few months ago for structural wood class.
No, that was for lumber grading with the Wisconsin DNR.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun, actually. No formal training. I did spend a summer in high school framing houses with a friend of my dad's. He needed some help, and his son and I said, hey, we're young and dumb and willing to make a few extra dollars, and yeah, we'll throw 2x4s. Why not? So learn the joys of house framing and sheetrocking, and all of my quote unquote formal training, as some would put it, is just growing up with my dad and grandpa. We didn't grow up poor. I just grew up with dad and grandpa that figured, if I can fix it, I'm gonna fix it. Why pay somebody else to do it? And my dad had a small, simple wood shop. My mom was an artist, and they decided one day, instead of buying all these intricate little wooden cutouts that she was painting and selling, he went and spent a couple grand and bought some tools from Sears one day, and that's he opened had his own little wood shop, and he started supplying a lot of the folk artists around the area.
Mhm.
This is way back before eBay and Amazon, so it was all just word of mouth, and I got a little got to learn some of the tools. It was always, I always remember going to the shop and today's me today, I'm going to use a table saw. No, you can use the band saw, or the God, he had another one. My mind just went blank on it. There's just a little tabletop saw that, if you did happen to hit a finger with it, it's, tis but a flesh wound at that. So, yeah, never. And honestly, it was funny. It wasn't until I was, 28, 29. This is the first time I ever used my first table saw, because I was just never allowed to. And I had this innate fear of this spinning blade that my dad had put into me. So I never used the table saw. Band saws and jig saws and miter saws, that was no big deal. Those weren't dangerous, but the table saw was this, life-ending machine. So, and it's funny, it actually caused more injuries to my brother and I in the shop without it running, because my dad, yeah. So my brother and I we're 7 years apart. I'm the oldest. And the way my dad's shop was set up is, when you came down the drive from the house, it went straight into the big door on the shop. And if you hung a good left, you could shoot out the side door. And there was about a 2-foot drop off. So it was great to ride your bike through. We set up ramps. but it never failed. My brother and I would cut the corner a little too sharp, and that's right where that table saw was. And we'd catch a shoulder, catch a forehead, or something. So yeah, it was. I always laughed. Never cut myself on a table saw. Knock on wood, but man, I've got a few scars on my left arm from it. So
Nice.
yeah.
So when did you start thinking that you wanted to open up Byrom's Custom Woodworks? I mean, and how much time and planning did you put into it before pulling the trigger?
Not a lot. I kind of jumped on it pretty quick. Little background, kind of how it started. We or the reason we did push it is I was working for AT&T. I was an assistant store manager at the time. I'd been doing it for about 4 years, and they announced a big surplus. So they were going to lay off about 3,000 managers across the country, and my name just happened to come up. So it was great. It was I found out on my daughter's 1-year birthday that I was being surplused, and I had been kind of tinkering, and I had a few people like, hey, can you build me this? Making a few dollars here and there, and I was like, and I was trying to figure out which way I wanted to run, and I had some other job opportunities. And one of the guys I worked with said, hey, you're building stuff now. Why don't you get an official Instagram? Instead of the Bearded Woodsmith 85 is what I had on there. He goes, come up with a business name. Go ahead and tie it down so it can't be taken, and run with it. So, and in this conversation, slow days at the store, all the reps and everybody just kind of hangs out. And I had a girl that worked for me that was a graphic artist on the side. And she was, I've got an idea for a logo for you. All right, cool. Let's see what you got. She came back a couple days later and had my initial, circle logo with my face in the middle, and Byrom's, we kind of just going back and forth. I was like, oh, well, I'll name, Byrom's Custom Woodworks. Byrom is my grandfather's name. I was like, I'll name it after my grandfather, and it's my first name too. I was like, I'll do that. And then, so she came up with this logo with, the bearded face that, I put on everything, and then just kind of ran with that. And as far as like the reason we did that, and, I say the reason we did that, it was really just, I didn't know where I was going to land. Here I am working a very well-paying job that was providing very well for my family, and I had the rug pulled out from underneath me, and had a few options, but I didn't know what was going to happen. So I was like, well, I need a backup. I knew I was going to be able to collect unemployment and have a little severance, but I've never liked that. I figured if I have to do it, I'll use that money to get the business up and running, go buy a few nicer tools than I had. And hey, if I make money doing it, if I can make a living, whatever, and go from there. And fortunately, it's kind of always been a side gig for me on that.
Or was it a tough sell to a wife that saying, rather than going back into a corporate job, here I want to start my own business? Where you lose that safety net with that.
Not really, just because I did have the fallback of a 9-to-5 job if I needed it, and she knew it was a passion of mine, and she was always big on pushing my hobbies and letting me kind of do what I want to do. And hang on. Yeah. And so she was the biggest part. So this is the little one. If you want to say hi.
Is that the shop helper?
Yeah, this is the shop helper. All right, love you. And yeah, her biggest thing was, as long as the bills are paid and the kids have food on the table, we have a roof over us, do whatever I want to do. That was her biggest thing. Make sure, at the end of the day, when we swipe a credit card or we pay the electric bill, it doesn't bounce. That was her whole thing. And I told her it was partially her fault I wanted to do this, because she was the reason, she was the reason for the first project that got me back into woodworking. So it was, had to, she let it happen.
Since opening, are you still working full time anywhere? Or are you completely
self-employed?
I do.
No, I do work 9 to 5. I'm a account manager for AT&T still. I left AT&T, went to work for Rockstar Energy, and then got the opportunity to come back, because even though with the surplus I was still rehirable, and an old boss wanted me to come back for a position, and It's nice. It's not retail, so I'm usually off every day by 4 or 5. So I have some time in the afternoon, and set days off where I can plan projects and do that. And there's times where yeah, I'd love to. I looked at the Christmas numbers, and yeah, I could walk away, but Christmas isn't 12 months out of the year, so
Right.
got to and having the fortunate side of working for a large company, I've got great benefits. And that helped us. My daughter had an accident in the summer, and fortunately we had really good insurance. I mean, it still cost us an arm and a leg, but there's that. And if I want to retire in 20 years, I'll have a decent retirement. But then again, I've always said, and I'm working with the guy that I built the big 10-foot table for. This guy owns like 6 or 7 different businesses between roofing, drug testing, all kinds of stuff. I mean, he was a corpsman in the Navy, so he started doing drug testing and everything. And he asked me one day, he's like, "Do you really want a 9 to 5 for the rest of your life?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, that's where it's at." And he's like, "Well, what do you need to get started? What do you need to do this?" I'm like, "Well, I need the materials." And his goal is him and I teaming up and selling these giant epoxy tables, at least trying to sell one a month. And if we can, if that can allow me to possibly quit, and then the way his plan is, I'll be an employee in a way for his company, so I can fall under his insurance, but I will essentially be a full-time, table maker for his company.
Sure.
And if I need to build other stuff, whatever, he's just going to pay for the materials, and then we'll sell them at the end of the day. So
that's a cool setup.
Yeah, it's his excuse was he doesn't like paying taxes, and he had a really good year, so he's like, yeah, you go buy about $50,000 worth of slabs, and we'll just build stuff. And I was okay. Well,
no, stop! You're hurting my arm.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll start sending them to you.
Yeah, he's got guys all over the country, so we can get stuff down here.
So how do you find that balance between work and life? You're working, you're off work by 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, but then you might still have X number of projects you got to do in the shop. Plus, you got a wife and kid you got to carve out some time for.
I will admit, 100%, it's tough. There for a while, it wasn't as bad because my shop was my garage. I was 10 foot from the kitchen. So that was great. They could come out and hang out with me. If I had a lull in a project, or paint was drying or glue was drying, I could go inside and hang out and watch some YouTube videos, or play whatever with the kids and hang out with my wife. And when we moved to the shop we're in now, which is we're about to move out of, I thought at first, hey, this is gonna be a great business opportunity. We're gonna go from 450 square feet to 1,800 square feet. So hey, this is gonna be a huge way to expand, and that'll be a way to get us into another shop. We're able to sell our house, live out there for a little bit, and build this dream shop. But it's taxing. It's not really been. Luckily, my wife is very understanding. The kids aren't so much, just because dad's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of times like I'll be like, okay, cool, I'm going to run to the shop. I know this project that I'm working on is going to take me 4 hours. So give me 4 hours. I'll go out early in the morning. So get there, right when we wake up. I'll be home by noon, and I'm going to spend the rest of the day with y'all on my day off. Fortunately, one of my days off is Wednesday. So my daughter's in school. My son is homeschooled with his mom homeschools him. So he just hangs out at the shop with me. And he's got some land to go play on, and we just kind of hang out and do that. And on Sundays, I try to get majority of my big stuff done on Wednesdays. And if I need to do little things here and there at night, I will. So Sunday can be a half day at the shop and half day with the family. Excuse me. The goal is here in the next 2 or 3 months, I'm going to be right out my back door again. We've got, the garage that we're getting set up. So if I need to go out to the shop, it's going to be cool. I am going to put my house shoes on, and I'm going to walk out to the shop. Not let me drive 20 minutes or 10 minutes down the road to the shop. And, if something does happen, I'm here by myself,
Right.
Yeah. And that is the one thing that my wife does not like. She doesn't like me being out there alone because we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. And there's been a few things happen out there. So she's like, make sure you have protection if you're out there. Don't just, because when it's nice weather, the doors are wide open. And most people know when you're working in a shop, you either got loud music blaring, you got ear protection on, so I can't hear what's going on around me. And a lot of stuff that I do, for some people, I've never understood this, but for some reason, people love walking up behind you when the table saw is running, the band saw is running, you're in the middle of something, and they want to walk up and just stand there and just be like, and wait for you to stop what you're doing. And when you turn around, like I almost shot a guy with a nail gun one day. Like if it didn't have a safety on it, he'd have taken a brad nail to the face. Because I turn around and I'm in my shop in my old garage, and the dude's standing inside my garage with a clipboard wanting to, and I turn around and I'm like, ooh. And I jumped and I might have screamed like a little bitch, but because it was a little unnerving. And he's like, hi, how are you? And I'm like, you can leave. Walk away. Don't sell me anything. Don't talk to me. Turn around, walk down my driveway and go away. And he's like, well, no. And I was like, and I walked behind me and just hit the garage door button. And I was like, bye. Like, God.
My dad likes to do that to me when I'm running the table saw. He walks up right behind me and goes,
yeah,
what are you doing?
Yeah. And my wife does it too. Like she used to do it in the garage all the time. Like I'd be over on the miter saw or doing something with my back to the house door, and I'd turn around, and my wife's this little like 110, 105 pound redhead, and so she doesn't take up a lot of room. And I turn around and I just see this shadow sitting in the back door. I'm like, oh crap, what are you doing? I've been yelling at you for 5 minutes and you haven't heard me. I'm like, loud tool, loud music, got headphones on. And so I always tell her, it's like, if you need me, text me, and because, if you got a watch on, I get my text message. That never works. I'll get 10 text messages. Well, fine, you're just ignoring me. Like,
yeah, I work with quite a few different wood shops, and I make a point to staying back at least 20 feet or so and wait till they're done doing what are they doing, and then they see me, and then try to go and engage. And
yep.
Because I've seen the aftermath of a table saw kicking back a board before in high school shop class, and it's like I have good benefits through the company, and I wouldn't mind a week or two off, but not like that.
Yeah.
So I saw your video, and like you mentioned, you're moving into a new shop. You said you're gaining space, but just by the video and the pictures you've shown, the shop you're in currently looks bigger, but you have two stories. Is that right?
So originally when I first started posting about it, the plan was we were going to have a second story. Fast forward to today with an engineer looking at it and going, yeah, it's going to cost you another $15,000 to do that, because it turns out that the floor joists that they use to frame out the attic are not adequate for more than storing stuff.
Sure.
So right now, it's essentially a 3-car garage that we're moving into. So it's 22 by 33 feet deep. And what we're going to do, we're going back and forth whether we're going to get a 10 by 14 storage building to put in the backyard to do overflow lumber storage. I'm going to have it close enough to where I can put my dust collector in there and just run a pipe through both walls, or have a 10 by 22 slab poured and build a small extension onto the backside. And we're getting price. I was trying to get with a concrete guy this week to give me a quote for the slab, because if I can get the slab built, I'll frame the building myself. I don't care. I'll do all the framing, have, throw the siding on, have my buddy who owns a roofing company come throw the roof on for me real quick and be done. We just got to look at funds. But when this happened, when we started looking at this house, I went in and measured out in my current shop, and it actually turned out the way my tools are laid out now, they relatively fit inside my new footprint. It's just the storage that's going to be the problem.
Sure.
That was, according to my wife, I became a hoarder, when I got into the bigger shop. Little did she know I was already hoarding strapwood as it was, because we always do that. But I started hoarding slabs. I had a local guy that he was a slab dealer, and anytime he had someone fall through, he would call me and offer to sell me the slabs for half the price. So I loved it when people fell through because, he would go to Oklahoma, get the slabs, bring them to Texas. Well, Joe Blow down, that he's taking them to decides, oh no, I don't want to spend $200 on this slab. He calls me up and goes, hey, I've got a $200 slab, and I've got 4 of them. I'll sell them to you for $100 a piece, so I don't have to haul them back to Oklahoma. Cool, show up, let's unload them. Wrote a lot of checks that I shouldn't have been doing. And then wife shows up and she goes, that's a new slab. I'm like, yeah, it is. I got a really good deal on it. It was originally this price, but now I got it for this price. And then I get that, well, you could have saved even more if you, no. What about that purse you just bought?
About those shoes?
I believe the term my brother uses is asset rich. Whenever my sister-in-law brings up how much, well, he bought a new skid steer last year, and it's like the Cadillac model of skid steers, heat, AC, heated seats, sound system. Yeah. It's like, fuck, that's nicer than my damn car.
That's what I say. It's probably more expensive too. Knowing all those accessories.
That it was.
those things get expensive.
So on the business side of the house, I mean, how did you learn to navigate that? I mean, you get shipping, if you cross states and you get different tax rates and stuff like that. I mean, did you go to anyone to help you out with that, or all self-navigation?
I was fortunate. So the guy that used to train me used to own the gym that I went to all the time, and we were both training for strongman stuff. He, owning a gym and being a personal trainer, he had a lot of background in that. And his now wife's mother was a business owner. She used to supply food for all the schools around the area. And so just in talking, it's like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing here. What do I do in this case? And a lot of it was, just make sure you have this much money set aside at the end of the year for taxes. And since we're not an LLC, I'm still just a sole proprietorship. I just do it on my personal taxes. I just pay it that way and be done with it. And fortunately, I've been fortunate enough to, with tools and everything, to break even just about every year. I'd like to show a loss if I could. Little cash under the table every once in a while. No,
right.
Just kidding. And shipping wise and stuff, I've only shipped a few things. There for a while, I was doing a Texas flag with the Marine Eagle Globe and Anchor in it, and I shipped about 10 of them across the country. And that I just went through Etsy. I went and put a listing on Etsy and said, hey, if you want one, go pay for it through Etsy, because discounted shipping. They handle all the tax stuff out of state, and that was really the only reason I ever used Etsy, is just because I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to figure that. So I figured, hey, we'll just use this app. They've got it set up. Somebody's already taken the time to do it. Mm-hmm. We'll use them. Yeah, I didn't make as much because I'm not going to tell the customer, hey, I know it's only this price, but because I have to use this company, I need to add another $50 on so I can make all my money. But at the end of the day, I wasn't making those to make a ton of money. I was really just making them. That was when I really first started, so I didn't know what I was doing. I just looked at, hey, cool, I covered my costs and materials, didn't cover my time because I didn't know anything about paying for time and labor and all that at that point.
You're supposed to pay yourself? What?
Yeah. Come to find out, yeah.
Damn it.
And that's one thing I get asked about from people that are starting up. It's like, I'm trying to price stuff. How do I price it? And I had a guy build me a spreadsheet, because I've got a friend that loves that. He's very analytical, and he said, okay, I'm going to build you a spreadsheet so you can literally put in your material costs, your time it's going to take to build it, and all your percentages. And then you can go in there and say, okay, here's your hourly. And I was like, and I kind of questioned it. I'm like, well, why do I need to worry about hourly? He goes, well, are you always going to be the one building this stuff? It's like, well, yeah, if I can. He goes, well, what if you have to pay somebody else? That's not free. I'm like, well, yeah, but it's myself. And he's like, you need to build in the end of your pricing as if you were paying somebody else. And in there, and what I didn't realize is when you break it all down, that is not considered a profit. So it's taxed different because it's not considered a profit because it's a cost. Mm-hmm. Even though so I just write myself a check essentially from the business, and it goes back into the business, of course, but it makes a little bit extra.
Yeah, that's a mistake I made when I was working self-employed. When
mm-hmm.
the taxes came around, and I rather than shooting myself in the foot, I just decided it'd be a good idea to step on a landmine with that one.
Mhm.
Later.
Yep.
But so you mentioned, you're making the Eagle Globe anchor. Was that your first item that you really started selling, or did you start off with something a little bit more simple? Or if you
Way simpler. So the first project. So what started this all, and it's funny. It's right on the other side of the wall of my office as we speak. My wife and I, when we first started dating, when she moved in, my wife's a veterinary technician, and so I have a soft spot for poor helpless animals, and she knows it, and she exploits it. So we have 3 cats and 3 dogs. I had 1 dog when we met, and no cats, and so now 3 cats, 3 dogs. She comes home, or she sends me a picture of this beautiful little Siamese kitten, and of course I grew up with one. She was my favorite cat. Okay, cool. Well, I'm a sucker, so bring her home, whatever. Well, didn't think about the fact that I also had a lab who really liked kitty treats. So we needed to find a way to keep the lab from eating, getting snacks from the litter box. So I don't know. I didn't even really look up ideas. I was just like, oh, I'll build her a log cabin for the litter box. And so I went to Home Depot and I bought like 20 2x4s, a can of stain, or no, I think I had stain left over from a project from like 5 years ago. Got the stain, and I had this old crappy Ryobi, like 15-inch miter saw, and a couple sawhorses. And so we set up in the garage, and we built this, like 3 foot by 2 foot, litter box cabin. The lid opens up so she can clean the litter box out. Posted it on Facebook, and I was like, hey, look what, I was like, this is cool. Or my wife really posted. She's like, look what BJ built, for our cat. This is awesome. And then I started getting requests, because pallet wood furniture was big back then. Mm-hmm. And the lady, so my friend that's, used to own the food business, we were at the gym one day, and she's like, hey, I've got a surplus of pallets. If you want them, come get them. Well, at the time I was driving a 4-door Kia Optima, so great car for getting pallets in.
Hey, I've had clients come to pick up slabs in smaller vehicles.
Yeah, and I used, we loaded those 2x4s in through the trunk. I had them resting right up against the shifter in that car. That's real safe. Thank God nobody stopped in front of us. And I said, well, I don't have a way to get them. And she was, oh, sweetheart, don't worry about it. I'll bring them to you. You're on my way home. I'll drop them off at the house. Cool. So she brings me some to kind of tinker with, and then getting ready for Christmas, we're at the gym again, and she's like, hey, I need you to build me something. Okay. We have a revolving Christmas tree, and they have a huge family. So when all the presents show up, it blocks the tree. And this is their 3rd one because they keep burning up the motors because the limbs will get stuck and it can't spin. Mm-hmm. Let's not just turn the tree off. We got to have the lights on. So she goes, I need a tree stand, a riser thing for my tree. It's like, okay, so I built her this thing out of 2x4s and scrap, and out of pallet wood. Did that, built a few more things out of pallet wood, and sold those. And then I got asked to do a vendor fair. So my buddy that owned the gym, he's like, hey, we're doing this for the city. He was part of the Chamber of Commerce for our local town. He's like, I've got my booth and another booth. You cover half of that booth, I can sell it to you at a discount, and we'll sit it beside each other, really, so we can just hang out all day Saturday and just BS and whatever. And you sell some stuff that you've got, and I'll sell some of my sell protein shakes and popcorn and stuff that they were selling at the gym. I was like, cool, whatever. So I had a month to get ready, and I had no products. So I was like, okay, what can I sell? Well, it's just a little bit after Halloween, so Christmas has just happened. So we're getting into the springtime. I had a folder on my computer that was nothing but jack-o'-lantern stencils. So I printed like 20 jack-o'-lantern stencils out between like Star Wars stuff, Mario stuff. My wife loves Nightmare Before Christmas. So I had a bunch of like Nightmare Before Christmas stuff, printed them out, glued them down to just a piece of scrap wood, and I had this little crappy rigid router, put an 1/8 inch router bit in it, and just went to town, cutting out all these stencils, painted them, sold them at like $10 a pop. Did that, made some other little junky things. I made my money back, and I made a bunch of flags because, rustic flags are big. I probably tripled my cost at the end of the day. I had no business cards. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I'm brand new in this business, no business cards, but I did have a stack, and I'll show you. So I still have a bunch of them left. I had I don't even see them, but just a bunch of these crappy vinyl cut stickers that a friend of mine made. And so I was just handing them out every time somebody bought something. Here's a sticker. Here's a sticker. And in the process of doing this, that day I ordered business cards from Vistaprint because I was like, I got to have business cards, obviously. We're trying to make money here. Let's try to look somewhat professional. I've never admitted to being fully professional in my life, but we'll try. And just started getting orders. And a lot of it was, I got a lot of the orders I got is, hey, have you ever made this? No, I haven't, but I can figure it out. A lot, like my sister-in-law asked for a kitchen table, and I made her this kitchen table with 2 benches for $350. Yeah. And
I think that's my down payment for table Ben has.
Yeah, and Ben, your reaction to that price would be your reaction if you saw that table now, because I didn't know what I was doing. I went to Home Depot or Lowe's. I bought 2x4s and 4x4s and built this. Oh, she loves it. She absolutely raves about it. But I walk in there at, we have holidays or something at her house, and I'm just like, one of these days I will build you a new table because this is hideous. But it was a learning process. I used to think, oh yeah, because everybody was using pocket hole screws for everything. Yeah, 2x4s with pocket holes and a ton of glue. That's how you build a table. No, that's not how you build a table. Lo and behold, little did I know. And cutting boards. I had a couple orders for cutting boards. I'd never made a cutting board in my life. And the only sander I had was a 10-plus-year-old 5-inch Ryobi sander, and that was it. Crappy table saw. Like, I'm trying to do all this stuff, but as I had more money, hey, I got this really cool project coming up. The customer agreed to pay me $500. Cool. I'm gonna go buy a new table saw, or I'm gonna go buy this new tool. And like doing all the signs, the hand cut, routed out signs. It just got to the point where, yeah, they looked okay, but I wanted them better. And I was like, CNC stuff started getting big. So then I was like, all right, let's buy a CNC machine. That was I didn't really ask for permission. I asked for forgiveness.
It's easier that way.
Yeah, I bought 2 CNC machines that way. This one was the cheap one. The first one was only $2,000. Yeah. Yeah. And use that to expand my knowledge and expand my product space, and just kind of started throwing stuff out there and really enjoyed it. And yeah, just kept going. I jumped into metal signs there for a little bit. That was the second CNC that I bought. I bought a $20,000+ 4x8 plasma table. Came home and told my wife I bought that table. She wasn't happy. But I mean, we did come to an agreement that if I couldn't make the payments on it, it goes up for sale. No questions asked. If it comes to a point where I'm not making my money, and that's what happened. I ended up, the company I bought it off of, they were using it, and they gave me their price margin, their pricing plans, and how they did everything, and they were selling. So I just continued with their pricing. It's pretty much $25 a square foot. If I'm using a square foot of metal, this product costs you $25, and so on and so forth. Making a good amount of money. I was covering my note every month and then some. And it was actually, I took about 4 months off of woodworking just because the metal production was just so intense and I was doing so much stuff. And I really started to not like it because metalwork is gross and dirty. I mean, it gets into everything. It ruins your clothes. It ruins your hands. And, you know, as a guy with a beard, metal slag in your beard is a horrible thing to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
But the money was good. I mean, it was bringing a lot of money, you know. Hey, and then I noticed it started falling off. You know, I would give out quotes to people, never hear anything back, and just kept on and kept on. I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is weird. You know, I was killing it, and had a friend call me up one day, not someone that I really hadn't talked to in a long time. It calls me up. He goes, "Hey, brother, I need to talk to you about something." It's like, "What's up?" He goes, there's a local shop to you that bought a plasma table." Okay, yeah, cool, good for them. They're advertising to beat you. I go, "What do you mean?" He said they have put out that if someone brings your quote to them, they will beat it by 50%.
Of course.
Oh, okay. So we're going to play games. So that's, and I'm not a petty, spiteful person. My wife could be, and so she gave me some ideas, and I had some ideas. So I started giving out stupid quotes. You're going to beat my price by 50%? Cool. This $200 project's now going to cost $50. Barely going to cover my because I mean, when you know the material cost, and he's buying his materials from the same place I am,
Right.
so I know his material costs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you want to play this game, let's play. Let's play, buddy. And then I found out another shop they weren't doing the same thing. They were pretty competitive in the market, but he was full time, so he could churn stuff out 10 times faster than I could. And I'm actually friends with that guy now. He builds the bases for my tables. He's a great guy, and so I hold nothing against him. He was just better place, better time. But what really was the kicker is when I went to sell the machine, the guy that bought it, we had a gentleman's agreement. As long as he's making payments on the machine, any product that is sold off that machine, I get 100% of the profit, and it does not go towards his cost of the machine. I cover the materials, I cover expendables, everything. But the deal was he could not sell product. You know, only thing he could use it for was working on his hot rods and building parts for his trucks and stuff. He was not allowed to sell product. And again, screwed myself by not having anything in writing. It was all just a gentleman's agreement. And I was told explicitly I could trust this guy. Well, he wasn't good at hiding his tracks. And I walked in one day and noticed two business signs to businesses that I had given quotes to. The negatives were leaning up against the wall. And so I asked him about it. I said, okay, well, here's the quote that I gave them for those signs. It was roughly $4,000 in signs. How much did they pay you for them? One of them was a local brewery. Oh, I got 2 free kegs out of it. Really? Well, load those kegs up in my truck because those are mine. And, you know, and I was like, and I called them out. I said, okay, so here's the deal. You have a month I think at that time he owed me $18,000 on the machine. I was like, you have a month to have my money in my hand, or I show up with a flatbed wrecker and I take the machine. If I have to throw it in storage for 6 months so I can use it, I don't care. And a week later, he had a cashier's check in my hand for that money. And so I said, cool. And I walked over to the machine. I took all of my designs, everything that I had that he could possibly make any money off of, copied it to my flash drive and deleted every bit of it. And I walked away. And that was 2 years ago, and I have yet to speak to him or his brother since. And I've actually seen them twice in public, and I just walk away. Yeah. But yeah, that's the metal stuff. But and honestly, I'm happier now because I love woodworking so much more. It's so much more satisfying. You know, metal's great. If you love it, you love it. It's great. But to me, woodworking is so much warmer, and just, you know, when you throw finish over a piece of black metal, guess what? It's a piece of black metal. You throw finish over, you know, an elm slab that may not look that beautiful. When you throw finish over and how it just pops, or walnut or hickory, to me, that is the most satisfying part of woodworking. And my wife laughs at me. I will sit there and I'll sand everything down because I love popping the grain. And I don't do it to pop the grain. I do it because I want to see what this grain looks like. I will soak it down and say, oh my God, this is beautiful. And this is what it's going to look like with finish on it. And I'll just sit there and ooh and ah and everything. And, you know, I'm a nerd. I like it. It's, you know, because no two pieces of wood are the same. You know, no two pieces out of, you know, I got the chance to get 2 walnut trees that were cut down into about 18-inch chunks and mill them into boards, and they're just sitting in the shop drying. No two pieces are the same throughout the same log, which I love it, you know. And it's, you know, and I very rare. Oh, go ahead.
You know, if you want to put that one more metal sign together and put that down, so I can just carry that around with me for my full-time job, so I can just show people, because I explain that probably 100 times every week, that no two pieces of wood are going to be the same, no matter what you do on the finishing side of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's the thing. I was talking to someone the other day. Someone from TikTok wrote me and said, you know, they were asking about pricing something or something, and the conversation got into dumbest things customers have ever said. I mean, that in itself is a whole nother podcast on its own. Like, I thought about starting a podcast just called Dumb Things Customers Say. But my favorite one, I was building these shelves for this very eccentric rich guy. Like, I gave him a price because I didn't want to do them. I knew they were going to be a lot of work, so I gave him, you know, what a lot of people call an FU price. You know, if you're going to do it, hey, I'm going to make a crap ton of money off of this. But if you don't, I'm not going to be offended because I don't want to do the work anyways. And the dude looked at me, he goes, so do you need all the cash now, or do you want 50% down and 50% when it's delivered? And I just was, oh, crap. Well, cool. You know, $200 in materials just turned into $3,000. Yay for me. I'm going to go drink now. You know, and he straight up, so he wanted these weathered, he was big into Mayan and, you know, Mesoamerica stylish styles in his house. So lots of oranges and turquoises and everything. He wanted these shelves to match this table, these 2 tables that he had bought from somewhere in Central America that had been through everything. I mean, the guy had a door from some church or something, like, and he wanted me to match these colors. And I'm like, brother, I'd love to. It's impossible. Like, I can't. I will get you close. And I probably tried 50 different paint swatches, and, you know, okay, cool, we're close on this swatch, but when you start the weathering process, oh, I think I lost her. Hold on.
We can hear you. I don't know.
Barely.
Casey, you're muted.
Hang on a second. My audio just cut out.
There you
Oh,
go.
there.
Yeah,
Right here.
yeah. That got the message. It reminds me I'm muted, which is super nice. Thought I could just hit the button again.
Yeah. Talk about being professional.
You know, Gordon, I'm trying. All right, man. Like, this is the first time we're doing this in a while.
Right.
Got like 16 computers over here. There's a lot of things going on.
That happens.
Oh, I can hear you.
Andy's back.
Woo!
There we go.
All right.
Here we go. Okay. So where was I?
The matching paint swatches and weathering.
So yeah, we're going through, and, you know, once I got to the weathering, you know, even though I had a color that matched, once I got to the weathering, it would change the color. You know, you throw stain over it, you sand it, you know, the color would change. And finally we landed on a color that was close. I was like, all right, cool, we're good. You know, and that was on these small little sample pieces that I brought in. Well, when you take these 1x2 sample pieces and blow them up into a 2-foot deep shelf, the grain changes and this changes. And so I get the shells together, grinding on them, doing the weathering marks, doing everything to get them close to what he had. Call him up. Hey, come by the shop, take a look at them. He shows up and he's looking at them and he's walking around them. And his son's with him, and his son's just ranting and raving. Oh, these are beautiful. I love them. They're great. You did such a great job. And the guy's like, I don't like them. Okay. Well, yeah. What don't you like about them? Well, is there any way that you can paint it and then weather it and do this, but I don't want to see the wood grain. Yeah, I'm just like, oh, okay. And this is what my brain started hurting. I think I had a small aneurysm. And he's like, yeah, and I just don't want to, it just feels too rough. Okay, well, let's see what I can do. And I went back a couple times and I told him, I was like, dude, it's wood. It's pine, first off. Or maybe, yeah, it was pine. And I'm like, there's no way. Like, I burned it to get, more grain out of it, because that's what your other table looked like. Did it, and I went back and forth. And finally, I just told him, I said, look, here's the options. This is what I can do. Because if you don't want to feel it, you don't want to see it. We're talking IKEA furniture at this point, and this is not what this is, So 2 options. We continue down the road we're going. You let me finish them. I deliver them, and we call it a day. Or we call it a day, and you don't get your deposit back, because I have it in writing. Deposits are final. Mm-hmm. And this has been going on for like 3 months that I think I redid these shelves 5 times. So needless to say, luckily I did get more money, because if I was paying somebody, I'd have had to pay that labor and deliver them, get them set next to the table that we were matching. And the dude lost it. He's like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It's perfect. I'm like, it looks just like it did the first time you came and looked at it. But yeah, stuff like that. It's like, I want it. And that being said, the thing that I get is, I want it rustic, but not rustic, but, kind of, can you do that? Can you do rustic, but not make it rustic? And it's like, no. I've heard IKEA and Walmart do that. And then, it's like the epoxy tables. When I first started posting about the big table that I just finished, I had a guy message me on Facebook. He's like, man, I really want one for my computer desk. It needs to be 6 foot wide by 36 inches deep. Cool. You're probably looking at about, and I gave him the price, $7-8 grand or something when it's all said and done. It's like, depending on species of wood you want, do you want lights in the table? Do you want this, whatever? Oh, well, Home Depot sells these epoxy slabs that are like $400. So
Go to Home Depot.
Well, and I waited a minute, because I'm thinking, okay, I really, and I'd had a few drinks by this point, because it was later in the evening, and I'm like, I'm just in one of those moods. I'm going to be a jerk. I don't care. I've already lost the customer, so what's going to happen? I'm not going to lose him again. I said, oh, okay. Well, where do you live at? And he told me, and he lives 2 cities over from me. I said, cool. So right off I-30, next to the PetSmart and the Old Navy, there's the Home Depot. They have them in stock. Have a nice night. And his response back was, you don't want me as a customer? Said, no, I don't. I said, my materials are alone are 4 times the cost of one of their not even real epoxy tables. Like, sorry, dude. Like, it's not worth my time. And I've gotten that a lot. Why can't you do it for this price? Or, can you build it this way? No, I'm not. I'm not IKEA. I'm not Walmart. I'm not, this. And yeah, when I first started, I was cheap because I didn't know what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I try to catch these small up and coming shops that are charging bare bones for stuff. And it's like, guys, gals, you're not even you're barely covering your materials. Materials plus 10% is not going to make a business, unless that's what you're looking for. But you're doing that is hurting other makers. Everybody. Sitting there and, I don't know if y'all follow me on Instagram, but I think it was Friday, I posted something in my story, because I'd saw a post on Facebook, and I'd just gotten off a business meeting with my boss, and we kind of got our butts chewed, and so I was already in a mood, and I saw something that Home Depot was selling, these fake live edge slabs, and it was a little little terse on my comment, something about a handsaw and a body cavity or something, but it's just, and that's what kills me, and I know I'm never going to make $1 million. I'm never going to be the Blackwood Studio or whatever that place in Canada is. I'm not going to be those guys, but I'm tired of losing business to the Home Depots of the world, the Walmarts, the IKEAs of the world, and getting those customers that are just like, oh, well, I can go buy it here for cheaper. Cool. Have fun. Have a nice day.
That's I don't ever understand customers like that. Like, if you know you can have get it cheaper, why are we talking? Period.
Yeah.
Why are you wasting your time, let alone mine?
I've gotten to the point now, if I get a message, hey, I saw this on Etsy, but I'd like to buy local. No, not worth my time. And I will just write back and go, I appreciate it. At this time, I'm too busy to take on this job. Sorry. Because one, I'll never touch that price. And it's just, no, I'll build it for myself. Yeah, I've built myself tons of Pinterest projects. I don't like building for other people. It's just, it kills me.
And I know I'm guilty of it, of asking Ben to make something for me and pay him an exposure. Do you get a lot of that? I've seen you do some signs and stuff for businesses in your area.
Yeah. So I did one for my local barbershop when they first opened, and, he paid me for it. He paid me good money for it, but it was also, I gave him a flag that hangs, big, like 5 foot long American flag, with his logo cut into the Union, that I sold it to him for next to nothing. I think I covered the materials, but it's got my sticker on it. He's got a stack of my cards on it. He tells everybody, where I can get, where they can get something like that. I made him a chessboard or checkerboard, and the pieces have my logo on one side and his logo on the other, and his logo cut and engraved into the board itself. I got a year's worth of haircuts for free out of that board, and at 25 bucks a pop, that that came out pretty good. I mean, I was getting my hair cut twice a month. I think at the end of the day, he regretted it, but and I've done that. Like my buddy's gym, I made him a sign the night before a vendor fair. We sat there, hand drew it because we didn't have the way to blow his logo up as big as we wanted. Hand drew it on a piece of plywood, cut it out with a hand router. He came over and helped me. Got it done, within a couple hours. I think we're done by 1 o'clock in the morning, went to sleep, woke up at 6 to get ready for the vendor fair. And everybody like he talked to, he's like, oh yeah, this sign that right here, my buddy next to me right here, he's the one that made that sign. He can hook you up, everything. And, he paid me $100 for it. At the end of the day, he gave me a tumbler with his logo on it with $100 bill in it. I'm like, dude, no, you don't have to pay me for that. It's a friend helping a friend out. Like, I barely pay a dime when you look at it for my gym membership. I pay cost for my, my supplements. I'm like, no, you don't got to pay me anything. He's like, nope, that's what friends do. And it's like, and I literally turned around and said, okay, here's $100. I need $100 worth of, protein popcorn and this and this and this. I'm going to put it right back into your business. And, but I've gotten a few from Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. Hey, can you make me this? And I'll do this for you. And I've got a group on Instagram. It's just a group of woodworkers that are all trying to help each other out. And one of the, two of them have their own podcast. So that's kind of where their group came to be is, if you're a fan of the podcast, the early adopters of the podcast got to be in this group. And so, if you get something like that, you kind of throw it out to the group and go, hey, this person wrote me. They want me to do this for them. What do y'all think? Oh, yeah, I've dealt with them too. Yeah, don't trust them. Or, yeah, I did. One of the guys was like, yeah, I did something for that. And they had messaged him. He does laser stuff. He made them a sign. They promised all this stuff. The guy's like got 1 million followers on YouTube. All he got is he's in the background of his videos. He never got the shout out. He never got any of the clout that he was promised. None of that. I'm like, oh yeah, this guy wrote me and asked me if I'd build him a cutting board with his logo in it. He goes, and he's like, but he'll show it off and everything. He goes, yeah, don't waste your time. Delete the email. This is what he did to me. And he even showed me the email thread to prove it. He's like, this is what happened. And so a lot of them, I just don't mess with it. The one I did do, and I offered, the guy never wrote me, never called, never did anything. He's a local fisherman. It's a group called the Guggen Squad, and they're big. You know, they launched a big fishing thing down here in Texas, and the guy actually grew up right down the road from where I grew up at. So he's a small town boy. You know, went to Texas A&M. You know, really good guy, and been watching him for years. And he'd gone through some stuff. You know, had a brain tumor, recovered, and you know, so they were one of the YouTube channels that my wife and kids and I could all watch together because it was very family oriented and we liked to fish and stuff. And they got chickens, and they put in one of their family videos, you know, hey, if, you know, anybody knows anybody that makes signs, we'd like to get a sign for our chicken coop. And I just happened to have a mutual friend on Instagram had seen him at his shop one day, you know, in a post. And so I messaged the second, you know, I saw the video, I messaged this guy, hey, tell Justin to call me. You know, I want to make him a sign. You know, it's, you know, anniversary present for him, whatever you want to call it. I want to make this for him. Got to meet him. And I never asked for anything in return. It was just, hey, I want to give you this sign. It was when I was still doing the metal stuff. You design it. I'm going to take the time to come up with exactly what you want, but I want nothing out of it. And he writes me back and he goes, okay, cool. He goes, so we're going to do a YouTube video about it. I want to talk to you about it, you know, come meet you, do all this stuff. And I'm going to make it a point to whenever I'm out there, it gets shown. And I'm going to tag you anytime it's in a video. I'm going to tag your Instagram and business page in the show notes. And to this day, and it's been over 2 years ago, to this day, every single one of his videos that my sign shows up in, and I always know when it does, because I will get a random 5 or 6 fishermen following me on Instagram, and I'm like, bass, what? I haven't done anything for what? And I'll go and look at one of his videos, and there it is. My little info, my tags right there in his, you know, in his info stuff, and it's like, man,
nice.
It's a good, you know, it's just good old boy. But you know, I've kind of gotten away from the, you know, oh, I want something free. Can you do something free? And I'll shout your name out. No, not really. I don't have the time. If I was a hobbyist woodworker, maybe, but I don't have the time to do it.
Yeah, I think I'll start doing that next year with Ben, maybe. And Casey.
Yeah, right, with those walnut slabs that you want, Gordon.
It's Sunday.
For my first paycheck, Gordon. I don't know.
I gave you a bottle of bourbon. I don't see what the issue is.
I heard we're sponsored now. That means we get paid, right?
That's in the works.
No.
I don't know about this we thing. You haven't been here in damn near a year.
Hey, man. Stuff going on.
I want to go back to the epoxy table. That's how I found you over TikTok. Okay. Of that, just a monster of was it 10 feet, you said?
Right at 10 feet and a little over 30 inches wide.
Gross.
And 3.5 inches thick.
That's heavy. My back hurts.
It is, we don't have an exact weight on it, but we estimated 12 gallons of epoxy. And I think epoxy is about 20 pounds a gallon. And then 1 white oak slab that was split down, or I guess it's white oak. It's oak. We'll just say it's oak. Split down the middle. So we're estimating 500 to 600 pounds, and 2 of us can move it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun. And I mean, and I'm used to be a pretty big bodybuilder, and I used to work out all the time, and haven't in the last couple of years. But yeah, it's stout. Like, we picked it up Saturday to move it, and mind you, and it's funny. When you did my intro and you said the sunny state of Texas. It was 28 degrees yesterday morning, and it snowed here today. So yeah, we're moving this table in the cold, barely feel our fingers trying to pick this monstrosity up, and we're just we looked at each other dead in the eye. It's like, and I told him, I said, if it starts to go, it goes. There's no stopping this thing. Don't try to catch it because we're gonna blow a leg out. Just let it go. We can fix it. And he looks at me, he goes, no, and this is the customer, mind you. This is the guy who paid for this table, who's helped me move it. He goes, I'll end up underneath it. I'll sacrifice myself. Dude, it's not worth it. And we finally got it in and got it delivered. But yeah, it is. When we first pulled it out of the mold, I had 5 guys, fairly large individuals there to demold this thing, to get it, to break the vacuum seal from the bottom mold. And that time it was like, man, everybody's going, man, this thing's really light. And I'm like, well, yeah, there's 5, 200 plus pound guys picking this table up. It's light.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to move it a couple weeks later, went to flip it, and it was just me and the guy that bought it. And he's like, yeah, it's not as light as I remember. I'm like, no, my poor little Harbor Freight sawhorses they held through the test of time, though. I'll give them that. But yeah, it was a fun one. It was a challenge. That is at this point the biggest epoxy table that I've ever made. That's the most epoxy I poured at one time, since I've started this.
Nice.
And
How did you get into the epoxy tables? I never really thought too much of it until I saw Ben start to play around with it.
It started just, I was watching YouTube and saw some guys, doing some stuff, and I had my CNC doing engraving, and I was like, oh, I'll do some engravings and I'll fill them with epoxy. I don't know what I'm doing, but what's the worst that could happen? I waste a couple dollars of epoxy, and I ruined a few things. I've ruined a couple $100 in epoxy because turns out that stuff's not as cheap as you would think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Developed a pretty good relationship with an epoxy company. But what really got me into this stuff, there was a local woodworker meetup a couple years ago, or a little over a year ago. And this guy was supposedly like the epoxy board guru. Like all he did were these epoxy charcuterie boards. So we show up, we all kind of run out to a shop, we're hanging out, and we literally talked about epoxy and ways to cut wood in different ways. I learned stuff that I never knew. As far as I was concerned, this guy was a professional woodworker. He's some dude from Hawaii that moved to Texas that just got into making random epoxy boards.
John Graff.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, yep. I know
John's my buddy, man. He lives like 10, 15 minutes away from me. He's awesome. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to try this. And I was one of the last ones to leave that night. And he looks at me and the other guy that are leaving. He goes, well, y'all really want to get into these epoxy boards? I'm like, shit, yeah, come on.
His business is nuts.
Yeah, well, he does the molds now. He's pretty much only making molds.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to try it. He goes, okay. He goes, well, here's my epoxy company that I deal with, Super Clear Epoxy. And this, he goes, go to them. They'll hook you up with a discount. Oh, cool. Here's a couple molds. Just take them. I've got plenty of them. So the dude, and I still have those 2 molds that he gave me. And I asked him, I was like, you want them back? And he's like, no, I don't need them. Because now he's got the nice HDPE molds. And
yep.
I'm like, so I tried it. First one I did. And I had this really weird idea because this was about Halloween time. It's funny. A lot of my stories come around Halloween. I'm a big Halloween fan. So we decorate almost as much for, Halloween as we do for Christmas. But I had made these charcuterie boards that looked like a hatchet. I was just bored one day and had some extra strap wood. So I was like, oh, I'll make a hatchet charcuterie board. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I could take one of the edges and do like a blood drip on it? So it looked like it was, something someone had, like a meat cleaver, someone had taken somebody out with it. And so he's like, yeah, sure, do this. So I did a bunch of research, found this blood red epoxy pigment. It's actually called Fire Truck. So it looks, and it's the same color as a fire truck. Didn't know how to mix it. Ended up having to do like 5 pours because I kept mixing like 10 ounces at a time because I'm so scared. I just spent like $100 on this epoxy. I don't want to ruin it. I'm pouring this little bit at a time. And every time, instead of just doing like a tiny little scoop of pigment, I'm doing like a half teaspoon of pigment in 10 ounces of epoxy. When I say it was blood, like you can take a high power flashlight, put it on the backside, and you barely see through it. It is how thick. And there's a nice like 1/8 line across the bottom of just pigment that has settled out. And I'm like, oh, but it looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually one that my wife kept. She still has it and she uses it. And it's called the blood board because it looks like a blood river flowing through.
Nice.
And, that turned into, that was one board, and it turned into 10 boards, and then 20. And I think I've done maybe 40 or 50 boards. Maybe more than that. I don't know, I've lost count at this point. Every single one different. I've got one guy, I've got a lawyer buddy that every year for Christmas, he'll order 5 or 6 boards, and he'll want one specific color, every board the exact same color, just, different wood. And, I churn them out, and he covers my kids' Christmas every year.
Nice.
My tool Christmas. Cause and I take care of him cause he's a buddy of mine. And then just, randomly one day. And so the big table, what started it is, so my buddy Mike, he's the one that bought the table. Another guy that we're mutual friends with, Army vet, him and I've done some shooting instructions. So I'll help him at the range every once in a while, and just hang out and drink whiskey and smoke cigars every once in a while. He calls me up and he's like, "Hey, you're really good at this epoxy stuff, right?" I'm like, "I no, like I know how not to ruin it if that's what you're asking, but I'm by no means an expert." He's like, "Well, the boss bought this slab and he wants to pour an epoxy table." Okay, cool. He's like, "Come and give me some advice." So I show up, and when I walk into their shop where they've got it set up, I looked at him and said, "So here's my advice. You bring all this stuff to my shop. Y'all stop, because you're going to ruin this beautiful slab," which they already butchered trying to cut in half. And they bought, I forget even, it's like Pro Marine epoxy, and it was the tabletop epoxy.
Oh.
Bought 3 gallons of it to fill up almost,
that'll do.
Yeah, almost 12-inch wide by 3-inch deep, river. We're good to go. And I was like, and I told him, I said, "You were probably looking at $1,400 in epoxy. Next thing I know, I've got that in my account." He's like, "Here's the money for the epoxy." I was like, "Okay, well, it's supposed to be, a table for, a bunch of vets to hang out at. Let's throw some shell casings in it." "Oh yeah, it sounds like a good idea. But yeah, man, I don't have a ton of extra shell casings laying around. Don't worry, I'll take care of it." 2 days later, I've got 2 5-gallon buckets of shell casings sitting at my shop door. And it's like, "All right, cool. So we're doing this." And he's like, "Yeah." And Mike, he's a great guy, but he's a very impatient guy. It is, he expected that table to be done 3 days after they dropped off the slabs. That's not how this works. Epoxy takes time. I want this done right. And my thing is if we're going to advertise these tables to sell them, and this table is going to sit, if y'all saw the picture, the room it's sitting in, that is when you walk in the door to his business. That is the first thing you see when you walk into his business. And my name's on it. And I told him, I was like, it is going to be perfect. And I sanded, I did so many things to get it just right. And to me, it's still not perfect. It will never be perfect just because I'm that OCD about it. And to him, it's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. I have to give him a hard time because I think he's half blind, but whatever. We're all overcritical on our own products than anybody else. But yeah, that was, I've done other tables. Like I've done just regular kitchen tables, done them the right way over the years. But that was the epoxy table. And that really came from just my knowledge of, hey, I've done all these other pours. I have an idea of what's going to happen. I used a lot of resources. I was texting John every couple of days. "Hey, what do you think about this?" I was texting the rep from Super Clear. Here's the plan. What are we doing? And he was kind enough, since it was, a veteran-owned company, and this was really a gift for me to do this for him. I didn't really make a dime off of it. He hooked us up with the discount on epoxy and I told him, I said, "Look, I'm probably going to ruin it. So if you can help a brother out, and if I do ruin it, I ruin it, we'll start over." And fortunately, had one pour with some bubbles in it, and I was able to drill them out, cause it was a mid-level pour. And anybody listen to this that's wanting to pour anything with bullet casings in it, fill the casings with epoxy prior to putting them in epoxy. They will bubble. And that's what happened. I came back 2 days later, and I had about 40 bubbles sitting right there under the surface of the epoxy. So just enough to where, had to get the Dremel tool out and drill them out. And I mean, you can't see them. There's one that I see just because it's
You
my
know it's
I built the
there.
table.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to the naked eye, like you'll never see it. And, you know, you got that one bullet casing that's cut in half at the end of the table that, you know, it's kind of been a conversation starter about it. But, you know, it's just like anything else I've ever done. I'm either going to do it right or I'm going to screw it up and try it again. You know, it's, you know, second, third, fourth, fifth time's a charm. You know, I've filled up a fire pit many a times with oh craps, you know, or that didn't go as planned.
Yeah, and as Ben was alluding to earlier, my hope and goal is to have my own house, but I'd like to do a 12 to 14 foot bar top, like out of ideally black walnut, but have, you know, just something pretty rough shape, but then fill that in with an epoxy to level.
This is also the human being who's asked me to stain black walnut.
Not stain. It's
yes. Can you make it darker?
And you're still friends with him?
He lives really far away. I don't have to see him that often.
It's hard.
It's hard.
This is why I bring people bourbon on a regular basis.
I have not received bourbon.
It's in the mail.
Mm.
But yeah, it's not stains. I work with coatings professionally, so I know what I want, and I'll do it, and then I'll just hand it over to Ben, and he can do the epoxy side because I'm not getting into that. But just curious, so you got 6 years or so now under the belt?
4 years officially since the company's established, but yeah, about that's a lifetime of working, but yeah, about 6 years since our first official project, I guess. Yeah. So,
what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome?
My own anxiety in some places, just getting out there, talking to people, pushing my name out there. I'm really great behind a camera, and I say that I used to not be great. I've honestly just kind of taken to the fact that, like with TikTok and stuff, I just start blabbing and just act a fool, whatever. And apparently it's working. You know, I'm doing something right on there. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing something right. But I've gone to the networking meetings, and I'm the guy that, like, I'll sit in the back corner. If somebody wants to talk about me or force me out on the floor, I'll talk. But it's weird. Like if I'm out with my wife, I'm out there in the middle and I'll talk to everybody. Or if I'm in my day job, I will talk your ear off because I'm in my element. And it's weird. If it's the woodworking stuff and I'm out doing a networking event, I don't. And my wife gives me a hard time about it because she's like, you're a social butterfly. You talk to everybody. I know, but it's weird. I can sell a product for somebody else all day long because I know that product inside and out. I've lived the telecom for 20 years, but selling myself on a woodworking project to someone that hadn't already reached out to me is hard. And I've done it. Like I've grown a pair real quick, and I was in the middle of a Kroger, and these people were looking at these crappy little charcuterie boards, and just jokingly, I was like, "Hey, do you want something that's going to last forever?" And they look at me like I'm the biggest idiot in the world, and I'm like, and my wife's just kind of staring at me like, "What are you doing?" And so I pull out a card, and I'm like, "Here, you can call me. Here's my card," and I'm just like, what the hell? Like, okay, you blithering idiot. Like, what the heck? But then again, it's like, it's weird. Just wait, what was the question again? I totally got them off on my tangent.
Biggest challenges.
Oh, biggest challenges. Okay. There for a while, my biggest challenge was saying no. Every time somebody said, "Hey, can you build this?" Yeah, I can. Can you build this? Yeah, I can. And it's like, I look down one day and I'm 4 months behind on projects, and I'm getting blown up by these people going, "Hey, I've already paid you. What's going on?" And it's like, and I told them, it's like, "Hey, I got myself in too deep. I'm sorry. I'm getting to this as fast as I can." And I try to preface it with every customer. "Hey, I am a part-timer. I work a 40-hour work week. So I might not get a day in the shop for a week. You know, I'm still finishing up a ceiling mounted train kit for a guy. This would be like 16 feet by 9 feet, you know, bridges and turns and all this stuff. He put the deposit down on it in February of 2019. I delivered it the week before Christmas. And it's still sitting in the floor of the room that it's going to be hung in, because I haven't had a chance to go and finish it. Because the day that I went to hang it, you know, there was the original deal was he was going to help me. Well, he was out of town. And so it's just, you know, stuff like that getting in over my head, saying, yeah, sure, I can do this. When really at the end of the day, it's, you know, yeah, I don't have the time to do this. You know, the money's not worth it at this point. Like, what am I doing? And then just, you know, I think a lot of that also, the reason I do it is I like learning new things. So when someone message me and says, hey, can you do this? And it's something I've never done. Yes, I can do it. Now there's come a lot lately in the last year or so, I'll get messaged, hey, can you do this? No, I can't. Because I've done it and I hated every second of it. And I never want to do it again, you know, but you want this, I'll do this for you, you know, and it's just, you know, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
On the flip side of that, then what's been some of the greatest rewards that you found?
Aside from just the woodworking side, the networking too. And it's funny, I just said I hate the networking side, but the woodworking community, in my personal opinion, aside from, I will say, the weightlifting community that I used to be a part of, because they were very family friendly, and everybody was just a big family, and we took care of each other. You know, it didn't care, you know, who walked in the gym. Everybody was treated the same. You know, I wasn't the biggest guy in the gym. There was other things that girls outlifted me in at the gym. We all just had fun. And I know the whole weightlifting community is not like that, but the community that I was in was great. But the woodworking community, in my opinion, yeah, there's some negative Nancy's out there, and I've called some people out, and I don't put up with a lot of it. But for the most part, 95% of the people in the woodworking community are some of the nicest people you will ever meet. And all of them, how can I help you? You know, and I've had people message me, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you know, whatever. Hey, I hate to ask you this, because I know a lot of, you know, I don't know how you feel about this, but can I ask you how you would do this? Yeah, sure. Come on, let's do this. Let me help you out. Oh, well, you know, and I've had people say, well, I've asked other people and they just shut me down. Okay, cool. That's them. I'm here to help. One, you're not in my backyard. You're not stealing my customer base. So I don't care. And even if you were, and I've got 3 local woodworkers that come to my shop to have stuff done, whether it be CNC engraving. You know, I've got one of the, you know, out of the 3, I'm the only one with the drum sander. So they, you know, and they'll pay me. And I usually charge them $20 a job. You know, you want me to cut something for you, it's $20. You want to run something through my drum sander, you know, it's $20. You know, little things like that. But, and even like you said, you know, Ben, you know, John, the dude helps everybody. He answers questions. Like, I have seen his Instagram messaging, like, it's constant. And like the people that message him, and just, you know, the questions he answers, and, you know, the other friends that I've made, you know, the internet friends that I've made, everybody's willing to help. Yeah. And yeah, there are those few that are just like, nope, this is my secret. I'm not going to tell you. Well, okay, cool. You got that secret. I'm a halfway intelligent individual. I can probably figure out how you're doing this. And I'm pretty sure you didn't invent this process. So there's somebody else that's done something close. But if you're going to be that way, you know, okay, fine, whatever. I don't want you in my family, you know, whatever, you know. And there's some individuals that, you know, if your opinion doesn't match them, their recourse is to delete your message and block you from their page. Just because I have a different opinion on how something should be done. Cool, whatever. I'm not that sensitive. I've been called out on stuff that I've done. Well, why would you do that? Because that's how I did it. This is what works for me. But just everybody's here to help each other out. It doesn't matter. I talk to people that are, I talked to, one of the guys, there was his name. Why did I just go blank on his name? Bob from I Like to Make Stuff. I've talked to him before. I've talked to Josh that works for him. I've had the chance to talk to, a couple other big YouTubers that are just these gods in the woodworking community. They're just like we are. They're a bunch of goobers building stuff with wood that, had the chance to get out there in the YouTube world and the Instagram world and make a big name for themselves. But they all have the same goal in mind. How can I help somebody else do this? And I love seeing that. And that is the biggest part. And, I've got to learn a lot. I've got a really cool collection of tools now. It actually kind of made me feel good. My dad called me one day, and my dad, he's kind of been my guiding light in a lot of this stuff. He's the reason I am who I am. He called me up one day because he's like, "Hey, I'm looking to get in a table saw. What's your advice?" And I'm just like, "What? You're calling me for tool advice? Huh? Like, no, something's not right here." And then like a couple weeks ago, he was calling me. They're building a cabin up in northern Colorado, and he's asking me all these questions about building the table and everything. And I'm like, "Why are you asking me this stuff? Like, you're a smart guy." I mean, dude's he's got two master's degree. He's worked for a defense contract. Dude's a genius. Like, you're asking me, and he's like, "Oh, I just wanted to talk to you about it because I'm going to have you build it and drive it to Colorado for me."
Nice.
Oh, okay. He's like, "I know I can build it." He goes, "But why would I build it when my son builds tables and I'll just have him build it, and it gives you an excuse to come up to the cabin." I like that answer, and it's just and to me, it was just kind of a turn. It's like, wait a second, the man who I used to call all the time and go, "Hey, Dad, how do I do this? Hey, how do I do this? What would be the right thing to do here?" And there's still other things like, I still call Dad and go, "Hey, got the situation. You're a little more calmer than I am sometimes. What would you do here?" But to have my dad call me and go, "Hey, I'm looking at buying this tool. What do you think?" Or to have my little brother call me and go, "Hey, I'm remodeling my house. How would you do this?" I would find somebody that remodels houses for a living and call them, because the remodeling experience that I had was when I was in high school with my dad and my brother remodeling an old farmhouse, and it's just, stuff like that. That's what I love about it.
Well, one last question for you, for anyone listening that's looking to start up their own shop or business. What kind of advice would you offer to them?
Start cheap. Go to garage sales, buy tools. You don't need a $3,000 saw stop sitting in your shop. You don't need a $1,000 bandsaw or $2,000 bandsaw. You don't need a CNC machine. I've had people come into my shop and go, "Wow, I want every single thing in here, but I don't know what I'm doing." Go to a garage sale, buy tools, because that's what I did. My first project, I had enough money out of out of what they were paying me for this project. There was a guy down the road that would buy the return pallets from Home Depot, and he had built them up a little store. So he was selling them like 50% off of Home Depot prices. I went in and I negotiated with him. And it was a horrible, horrible table saw, a Ryobi contractor saw or table saw, Ryobi bandsaw, and the Ryobi sliding miter saw, which out of the three was the most high-end tool in that bunch, because I already had some DeWalt drills that I'd had for years. I paid $100, $150 maybe for all three of them. Came home. All right, cool. I need somewhere to put them, because we still parked our cars in the garage at the time. I spent another $100 or $50 on building a workbench that all three of those tools bolted to, and it had wheels on it. And it was the first time I ever went to Rockler Woodworking. Went there to get their pop-up casters so I could roll this table out of the way. So that I spent, like I said, maybe $250 on my first shop setup. And that was it. And just over time, I was able to, oh, hey, this job's going to pay. And, I made the joke earlier, oh, this job's paying $500. I can go buy this better table saw. And that's what it was. I went to Home Depot to get a new table saw blade because the blade I had was the original Ryobi blade that came with the saw when I bought it. And it was junk. Mm-hmm. Walk in and I see they're running a sale on the rigid, the bigger rigid saw for like $500. Cool. I just bought a new truck, so it's going to fit great in the back of my truck. And I showed up and my wife's like, you bought a table saw? I'm like, yeah, I did. Oh, okay. I was like, yeah, you know how we put it together? No. You can have fun. And so instead of working on projects that day, I put a table saw together. So, good planning, but that's, and I think the biggest thing for me that I wish I would have been given this advice from the beginning. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to fail. Failure is just a name of the game, and I'm one, I don't like failure. Back when I was, lifting a lot more, I had a goal on my deadlift. I'm a big dude. And I had a goal. This is what I want to do. I've never been good at deadlifting. I had a horrible lifting coach in high school that almost wrecked my back and pretty much wrecked a shoulder because he taught us the wrong way to lift. And getting with a good trainer that taught me the right ways to do it, I was like, okay, here's, I told him, I said, okay, I want to be able to do, deadlift 250 pounds, whatever. Never deadlifting, not knowing what I can do. I blew that out of the water quick. Okay, cool. Well, I want to double it. I want to do 500 pounds. And of course, my trainer's like, no, you need to step back. So I kept having these, and I never officially hit my total number. And I was so like, I would fail at that and get so mad at myself. I wouldn't show up in the gym for a week because it messed up my psyche. Or if I did go work out, my workouts were horrible just because my brain was out of it. And it was the same thing with the woodworking. I would get out there and do something, a simple thing, something that, I've seen, and it's sad, and you look at it, something you see someone on YouTube do 1,000 times and they do it right. Well, you also don't realize they have this thing called a video editor where they can edit out the screw ups and they show you when they do it right. Lo and behold, they're not all expert woodworkers. And I'd screw something up and I would just get frustrated. And I stuck a screwdriver through a wall one day, chunked it. I was pissed, and then walked out of the shop. It's like, okay, I'm going to stop, come back a couple of days later and walk back in. It's like, yeah, that was all my fault. I just wasn't paying attention. I wasn't, should have been doing this instead of doing this. But I've never really had anybody go, look, you're going to fail. And, I've had my dad and other people going, look, life is going to suck. You're going to fail at life, and I've had a lot of failures in my life, but woodworking is a passion of mine. It's something I love, something that makes me happy. I can be stressed out and mad at the world and go step in my shop and go, oh, okay. I'm a happy guy. This is great. I'm going to build something, but to screw up at something or to promise something to somebody and not be able to deliver it in that, and it tore me up. And there was times, and my wife knows that we had a lot of conversations about it. There was a good 6-month period where I was going to walk away from it. I was going to put everything up for sale and just walk away. I was going to be done with it. I would keep a few little tools just for house projects, but the majority of the shop was going to get sold just because I couldn't handle the stress anymore. And so I took like 2 months off. I didn't walk into my shop for 2 months, and that's crazy thing because it was attached to my house at the time. I didn't go out there for anything for almost 2 months. And then finally one day I was like, okay. And I had no projects to get done. I had no orders. Went out there one day and it's like, okay, let me just build something. And I made a charcuterie board, glued a couple pieces of maple together, cut a handle into it and called it a day, and I was just like, shit's easy. I was wrong, but but yeah, that's the biggest thing. The two biggest parts of it for people: start small, because you might hate it. You might watch all these videos and think this is great, and you go spend $10,000 in tools. And if you got the money to go do that, cool. Call me up. I will help you build your shop, and look, hopefully you'll be close enough to me, and I can come play with those tools too. But yeah, you don't. You go and look. There's videos all over YouTube. Start a shop for $500. Start a shop for $1,000. Realistically, you shouldn't need to spend more than $500 to start a shop. Get a good set of drills, and don't worry about the color of the tool. I like DeWalt. I have DeWalt and rigid drills in my shop.
Mm-hmm.
They're good. My day-to-days are my DeWalts because they're light and they work. If I really need to tear something up, I grab my rigid drills. They were cheap. But the green tools, not the Festool green, the other green. God, we all want Festool, but go get the Ryobi tools.
See, Ben, Festool, good.
Go away, Gordon.
There is a Festool domino in my future.
Oh, it's an amazing tool when you have the need for it. But
yeah,
people fall into, to your point, people fall into the trap like, oh, I can't make big tables unless I have $1,000 domino.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
no, every table I've built since then has been with a after coupon a $20 Harbor Freight biscuit joiner.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? It works fine. The dust collection sucks on it because it doesn't have dust collection, but it works great. And my wife bought it for me for after coupon, like I said, for like $20-$25. And it works fine. It's loud. It's obnoxious. I swear the thing's going to kill me one day just because it sounds like a little, honey badger want to rip you apart. But then you can do the same thing with a certain bit on a router. Mm-hmm. You don't need, or a dialing jig.
Yep.
No, you don't need a domino. Some of the projects that I want to do for myself in the future, would a domino make it better? Yes. Could I also learn how to just cut mortise and tenon joinery? Yeah, I could, but I'm also kind of lazy and I don't want to have to do that. Should I? Yes, as a woodworker, I should be able to do it, but whatever. You'll spend $1,500 on a domino and call it a day. But no, it's, I see it, Ben, you probably see it too in the woodworking community. The people that bash on Ryobi tools, because they're crap, they're junk. I know guys that have had the same Ryobi tools for 10 years and they still run perfectly.
Yep.
Are they the most accurate? No. That sliding miter saw that I had, it couldn't cut a 90-degree angle to save its life. God, it was horrible. But it wasn't used for that. It was used to break down rough lumber. Mm-hmm. That's what it was.
That's exactly it. It's knowing what your tools are going to be used for and what they need to be. Like, do you need a super, super precise saw to break down rough lumber? No. Yeah. If you're going to do finish work, if you're going to do your mortise and tenons, but if you got a decent table saw and a miter sled,
you can do a lot. There was actually a point when I was in my garage because I wanted the extra space. I was contemplating selling my miter saw and expanding that to something else and just building a couple different miter sleds and just using that. Because at the end of the day, that's really all you need. And that's why I appreciate a lot of, like the Bob, Bob from I Like to Make Stuff, David from Making It. Which he's another great guy. I've talked to him a few times, and dude's a hilarious guy. But they take the time to go, look, you can build it this way. You can build it with the $10,000 CNC machine, or you can go get, a jigsaw or whatever and do it this way cheaper. And that's what I try to tell people all the time. You don't need the high-end tools.
No.
There is a way to do it. Yes. Do I have more expensive tools because it makes the job go faster? Yes. If you're in a production shop, the faster you can churn stuff out, the better. Me as someone that only has so much time in my shop any given day, I need to be able to churn stuff out faster. I need, to be able to, I need the big bandsaw. I need the CNC. Mm-hmm. Do I really need it? No. But does it make life easier? Yes. For my business. But my business is also paid for those tools. I didn't take money out of savings to do that.
Right.
And it's just, that's the way it is. And And besides, if you go out and you spend $10,000 on tools and you find out you hate it, guess what? You're only going to make $5,000 of that back. It's certain things just don't resell great. And I've bought my bandsaw is how I got my bandsaw almost half price, because a guy bought it, realized I don't like doing this, and he went and he bought the bandsaw, bought every accessory for it, had like 5 blades for it, everything that could come with the saw, listed it, and he's like, yeah, I don't like woodworking, I like my laser, it's cool, but woodworking's not fun. I'm like, okay, cool. What other woodworking tools do you want to sell? Because
exactly.
And just start small and ask questions. And I that's one thing that I love about having that social media presence out there. And I know it's not the biggest in the world. To me, like seeing and I know we've all met through TikTok and Instagram, but I've never had that many followers. I've never touched that many people at one time. Seeing I think I'm at 11,000 followers. I know on TikTok that's nothing. I'm chump change compared to a lot of people, but even on Instagram, and people message me, and at first they're like, hey, I want to ask you this question. Ask. Ask everybody. Send the same message to 10 different woodworkers and see what you get. Because I guarantee you, 10, we're all going to do it a different way. It's, I guarantee there's things I do that, Ben, you do completely different. And you probably look at things I do and go, what? Why? Okay, well, as long as you're not going to die, you're fine.
Right.
Get the opinions, before you get into it. Or if you have the chance, find a local woodworker, find a hobby woodworker you can go hang out with for a weekend, build a project with. Tell them, hey, I'm going to supply all the materials. I just need your help. And I don't want you to do it for me. I want you to teach me, or if you're lucky enough to be near a Rockler or what's the other one? Woodcraft. Yeah. Granted, right now is not the best time to go in and take a class, because, everything going on, but go take a day class. There's a guy local to me that found out he really liked wood turning because his wife bought him a wood turning class at Rockler. And he was like, this is going to be boring. People that use lathes are old and obnoxious. And it's only a tool that old men use. Why do I want to use this? And now the dude's like, he almost annoys you with it. Every time I talk to him, dude, you going to get a lathe? When are you going to get a lathe? I'm like, why do I need one? You have one. If I need something to turn, I'm just going to call you and have you do it. No, man, you need a lathe. It's so much fun. I can teach you. I can do it. I'm like, no, and I've thought about it. I think it'd be fun, but yeah, just look at the community, look at the resources, and realize the fear is real, and shit's going to go wrong. Stuff's going to break. It's going to scare you, Don't stick, for, I guess, I don't know how PC this podcast is, but don't stick certain things. Don't stick your fingers where you wouldn't stick your other parts.
That's a t-shirt idea right there.
And if you do, don't call your wife freaking out while she's at work and tell her that you're bleeding and you might have cut your finger off. It's a great way to freak out the wife. Fortunately, I do have all 10 fingers and toes. One's a little bit shorter than the rest, but that's about it. Just have fun. It's an addiction, and it's a very expensive addiction. I think the only 2 other hobbies that I've had that equal to the cost, the expense that woodworking is the shooting sports I used to be into, and golf. And I haven't picked up a golf club except to move them when I moved in a long time. So,
Well, BJ, appreciate you taking the time to come on the show tonight. But if folks listening want to get in touch with you on social media, where can they find you?
Pretty much everything across social media. Byrom's Custom Woodworks. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. That's really the main 3 that I'm on. If anybody has any questions, anything, feel free to give me a shout. My door is always open. I'm always welcome to answer questions.
It's awesome.
Thanks again, and thank you for everyone that is listening to the show. Without you, the show would not be possible. Many of you have asked, how can you help out? There's a couple of things you can do. Most of all, head over to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review on there, and make sure to drop a comment. Secondly, tell your friends, family, coworkers about the show, and talk them into checking it out. Lastly, if you'd like to bring new episodes out, head over to patreon.com. I have a little tip share set up on there. You can also click the show notes and check out the new merch store. The Axe and Hammer collection is out now for a limited time. If you'd like to keep in touch with the show and see who's coming on the show next, follow the show on Facebook, Instagram at Rules of the Arena Podcast. And don't forget the show is also on Twitch, where you can tune into the live conversations. Just head over to twitch.tv/Rules of the Arena. And if you missed the live stream, but you still want to check out the video broadcast, you can head over to YouTube and just search Rules of the Arena Podcast. If you'd like to get a hold of me directly for any comments, questions, concerns, or be a guest on the show, please shoot me an email, Gordon, that's Gordon, at blindninjastudios.com. And don't forget to check out my other show called No Story Left Behind. You can find that show on its own feed wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can follow the show on Facebook and Instagram at No Story Left Behind Podcast. Thanks again, folks, and we will catch you next time.